Welcome everyone to episode 22 of Digitales. My name is Faizan Sayed, and today I have the very successful, very prominent politician Salim Manviwala, who's also the deputy chairman of Senate, was the former finance minister, and has remained as the chairman of the board of investment of Pakistan. How are you, Salim Saab? How are you doing today?
Thank you, Fazan. Thank you for inviting me on your show. I'm fine.
Thank you for taking the time. I'm going to kick off with one question. You are a commercially licensed pilot who studied this, and you are now the deputy chairman of Senate and entered politics. How does someone with that interest end up here?
This is difficult for me to explain because I myself don't know. but I'll tell you something that flying and commercially flying and all kinds of flying that I did, aerobatics and all those things.
Wow.
That was my passion. So that was from my childhood I wanted to do. But that's you don't know where life will take you because I hail from a business family
Right.
and always saw business since I was a child. And it was something that I guess when my father fell sick and he could not manage anything, during his lifetime. So I returned back from the US where I was flying and working for an airline, a small airline
Wow.
although in those days. And I
So you're
was
actually
responsible
working as a pilot in the US.
working as a pilot in the
Wow.
US,
Wow.
flying these. In those days, we had these DC-9s,
Right. Of
small,
course.
something like a small 737. But
Right.
it was interesting days. We were not very welcome in the plane cockpit. It was a white dominated
Right.
job. Only white people were seen in the cockpit,
And this is the
white
80s.
people, and we were looked at as Hispanics because nobody knew at that time that where Pakistan was. It was
Right.
difficult to tell people that you were
Right.
from Pakistan. But anyway, it was an interesting journey. And I was there nearly 7 years, and then my father fell sick, and I came back and went into business, taking care of the business and things like that.
So why didn't you
During the
open an
beginning,
airline with the family business? Why not open a small, there's a new airline that's been inaugurated yesterday, Air Sialkot, I think.
well, actually, I thought many times, but I didn't see enough opportunity at that time in Pakistan for an
Right.
airline, and the rules and regulations even today are so difficult and so
Right.
complicated in Pakistan that neither airlines are growing and neither, I mean, these airlines are coming up because PIA's inefficiency. If
Correct.
PIA was vibrant as it was in the 70s and 80s, I don't think there was space for these airlines to come in with the regulations and the systems and the orthodox civil aviation systems that we have. They would have never come. But anyway, let's say by default PIA has gone down, and there is space now for airlines to come. But in my times, it was not very attractive business, and everything was controlled. The fares were controlled.
So it's very
It was a
regulated.
controlled business, you know. So that's why I never really got into looking at getting into airline business. And airline business is worldwide is a very risky business.
Very
It's
risky.
not a business which actually gives you a lot of returns, and it's high risk, highly
Look,
volatile,
look at what it did
and
to the owner of Kingfisher in India. I mean, it took him down completely.
exactly. I mean, from billionaires, from a billionaire, you can become a pauper if you have an airline.
That's
But
true. That's
anyway,
true. So
so
then
anyway,
you
this is that.
did the family business, but where did this interest or branch into politics? So that journey
Yeah.
began. I mean, was it later on?
I
Did you
was.
always have
I'm
that?
coming to that. We had business in Dubai, and that's the time I met Benazir Bhutto in Dubai while she was in exile. A friend of mine. I knew her from before because her mother had some terms with my family, and
Okay.
I knew of her, but never had anything to do with politics.
Okay.
And my father was very much against politics. He
He
used
was.
to do everything, but don't never go get into politics in Pakistan. And sometimes I feel probably for business people, it's better to stay away from politics.
Right.
But anyway, I met her in Dubai, and that's the time I got to know her, and she convinced me in 2000 to join
Okay.
People's Party and try to contribute in politics in Pakistan, and somehow, you know. So I used to always tell her that, I'll do what I can with you in Dubai, and then when you come to Pakistan, I'll see what I can do with you, and if you need me, I'll be there. And we became friends, you know.
Okay.
Beside politics, we became friends. So that's how actually I got introduced into politics, and she kept on convincing me that people like you must come into politics, and who actually are not looking from anything out of politics, but
Right.
basically to do something good for
Right.
Pakistan. So I was, I used to kind of listen to her, see her. Sometimes I used to sit with her while she used to reply her emails, and what kind of
Mm-hmm.
emails she used to get, and very routine stuff. The time I used to be free and doing with her. So that's how I got introduced to it, and I developed a little interest
Mm.
in doing something in politics. So then, the unfortunate incident happened. She came here and she was assassinated or killed by, the terrorist or
Mm-hmm.
whoever they were. And that kind of disturbed me very, very much, because I never expected this is also part of politics.
Right.
And then obviously Mr. Zardari took over, and I met him. She also introduced me to Mr. Zardari in Dubai when he came to Dubai after he got out of jail. And that's the time I got to know him. Then when he took over, he called me and he says, "Listen, Bibi is gone, but you guys should, support me and help me, and like you were working with her in
Mm-hmm.
Dubai." So he convinced me to join Board of Investment and help him as far as the business is concerned, the the investment activity is concerned,
Right.
and because Pakistan was in bad shape at that time, the world was in bad shape at that time.
The
So
Great
that's the
Recession
time
happened in 2008, in
yeah,
fact.
stock exchange was closed, and
Right.
global bad situation, and America was in crisis, banks were going bankrupt, everything wrong was happening economically all over the world. So anyway, he convinced me, and I thought, okay, I'll, and it was like, just I started. But then I got so involved in the Board of Investment, it became a challenge for me, and
Right.
I wanted to do something,
That must have been a very hard job, because who would have wanted to invest in Pakistan at that time?
Nobody. Believe me, it was impossible to bring somebody to Pakistan.
Why was that?
Even
What was the perception
because
issue?
because the world was in crisis,
Mm.
and we are looking towards the West, and then we were looking towards China to come
Mhm.
towards Pakistan and invest, and it was really difficult, and really the investment we got was even we didn't get any direct Western investment, but we
Mhm.
got Western companies in Asia, in Turkey, in various other countries, Middle East, who came and invested in Pakistan. Some people expanded, some people came with new projects.
How did you
Japanese.
convince them?
Well, I just asked them to come, and I kept going everywhere. I kept going everywhere and meeting them and just asking them to come and visit and see the opportunities available
Mhm.
in Pakistan. And as there was no opportunity in the world at that time, so they were keen to come and see. And like
Mhm.
we got the opportunity to build Centaurus, a mall in
Mhm.
Pakistan. We got the opportunity. We brought Yamaha in those
Mhm.
days. We brought this uh, German company who put an oxygen plant or something. Then we had this Tawarki Steel, which came in and installed this steel thing in Karachi.
Are
So,
they
so
still
we
in
did.
operation? today all of
So
these investments?
Tawarki shut down because I think they did not get the concession that they were looking from the government. So
Right.
basically that shut down. But Yama operated, Centaurus Mall got finished, the oxygen plant was installed, and many other expansions. Coke came in a big way, bought all the 18 plants in bottling plants in Pakistan, and Procter and Gamble installed a new plant in Port Qasim. So like that, there were activity, but
Mm-hmm.
not at the magnitude that I was expecting. But at least there was something because nothing was happening in Pakistan. Pakistan was the worst country declared by so many countries, travel advisories, terrorists, coming out of everywhere, bombs exploding, everything was going wrong in Pakistan.
But a lot of that
So,
is improved today, right?
yeah, definitely. It
So
started improved even at that time, but obviously these things took time.
right.
But anyway, I had no regrets. We made a platform, we put Pakistan on the map. The first legislation Board of Investment did was special economic zone legislation, which was required by most of the countries. And you see today special economic zones developing in Pakistan. It was all the legislation we did between 2010 and 2013. So there was a lot to do, and I felt there was a lot to do more. But obviously, when the other governments come, they have different agendas and different things. So the Board of
What does it
Investment
look
did
like
not.
today? But today, like let's say you fast forward from that time and you're looking from here on 2020. I mean, 2020 has been a year that's terrible for everyone. But let's say the 2020s, 1, 2, 3, whatever, the next few years. Do you see a bright, positive future for us? Is there hope?
Actually, we are lacking leadership at every level. Pakistan's biggest problem is leadership. Doesn't matter. It's
Why is that? Is that because of
at
our
the
education
highest level
system?
because I don't know. People somehow come in politics or in bureaucracy only to serve their purpose or serve a certain area of their own. They
Well,
don't
why else would
realize.
someone come in? Because, when you've got, let's say, young people interested in serving government, and then they see that there's institutions like NAB that just go after everyone, and you're currently sort of running a campaign against them as well. I mean, no one would want to come in and serve in that environment. I mean, imagine a corporate, you're working at Unilever, and then the audit department shuts down everything you want to do. You stop caring after a while. You say, you know what, I don't want to work here. I'll go to Procter and Gamble instead. The audit department is going to run your every activity. And
No,
why
I
would you
totally
want to?
agree.
And
I
how do you
totally
get
agree
young
with
people?
you.
How do you get qualified, competent young people? And maybe that's why the leadership is missing, right?
That is that is true, but qualified young people obviously uh, uh, also need to be groomed. They need to come into the system. But I am talking about the lot which I see in the next 10 years.
Okay.
And that those people who are there now or who will be there in the future, they need to actually show leadership. And leadership is not limited to your people or to people that matter to you. It is for the whole country.
So you're
And
everyone's leader.
that I see lacking, and especially I see that lacking in Islamabad. So
Mm.
now I feel that people must realize the young people who come, obviously they look up to the people who are in offices today, who they are working with, and I feel it is a disappointment for them at times because
Mhm.
obviously they come with a different mindset. They come to serve their country, they come to serve their people, they come to serve to change Pakistan for the better. And when they don't see that happening, it's very demoralizing. And many of the young people who have interned with me in the Senate, many people have come from abroad. Pakistani children have come from abroad, graduates, undergraduates, people, doing their PhDs. they come to do intern with us, and they realize that there is lack of leadership at every level. So that is something that we are lacking as a nation, and I feel it is very important for us to realize that, especially people who are in the offices and people who are in positions. If they don't realize that, I think the young people of Pakistan gets discouraged, or they join them. They
How
say
do
this is
you
what it
how do
is.
you
This
fix
is what
this?
it is. Well, everybody has to show leadership on their own. I mean, you can't go to a school or a college or a finishing school to learn that. It is something that you must feel. You must
It's,
feel that whichever office you
it's taking
run,
initiative, right? It's taking initiative.
it's taking initiative, doing the right thing, which affects everybody in Pakistan, which should reach out to everybody in Pakistan, and which should allow everybody to participate, not the few, not the ones
Right.
that you want. So that needs to be addressed. You were talking about NAB. NAB is another organization. I'll tell you very interestingly why I have, people are wondering because they are
That's
investigating.
not your style. That's why they're wondering. It's not your
It's
style
not
to
at
do
all
this.
my style, because a year and a half they've been investigating my friend who did business with me, who I know since childhood, which is Captain Ijaz Harun, who was MD of PIA, and he sold some of his inherited plots from his parents to a private group which was probably being investigated by NAB, and NAB started going after all the people that group was dealing with. And what it's year and a half now, they put him under arrest. They did everything with him, and I watched all those steps that NAB was doing with him. And I felt it's time now that somebody gets up and rises up and says to NAB that enough is enough. You
Mhm.
have to stop harassing private people. NAB was meant to counter corruption. NAB was meant to counter public offices, government offices, public departments.
It's the people's
Uh,
tax money, right? It's the
tax
taxpayers' tax
money,
money that is being
government
spent.
money, wherever they felt that government money was being stolen or corruption. But what NAB started doing to show their performance, because they couldn't do anything or couldn't reach anywhere with that, they started going after private people, private transactions. You
That's
know,
demoralizing for businessmen.
it is terrible. It is terrible.
Why would
And I
someone
think
transact
NAB
and invest even
NAB,
legitimately
to
in?
show their performance, did not realize what damage they were doing. And the damage is today that the largest ever real estate package has been given by Imran Khan, PTI government, which has not got any response. Never ever a real estate package like this was given by any government. No questions asked on the investor, no questions asked on the developer, no questions asked to the buyer, no questions asked to the seller about where the money is coming from, where the investment. Even then, there is no investment in Pakistan. So, and the major factor is the NAB's indulgence in business. And that is what my war is. People think it's political. People think that I'm trying to, put NAB in a corner. Nothing like that. All I want NAB to do is stop dealing with private transactions, stop calling private business or civilians and trying to do plea bargain with them, trying to force them into plea bargain with them, trying to scare them, trying to threaten them. This has to stop by now. And if
Because
I
you're saying
achieve this,
it'll affect the prosperity of the country because businessmen would not invest here.
definitely,
It would
no
affect
private
employment.
person. I was talking to Mohammad Ali Tapa. I was talking to some other businessmen. They were telling me it used to be an honor to be a director or board of directors on PIA. It used to be an honor to be board
In
of
the public
director of
companies.
PSO on Sui Gas. No private sector person today wants to be a director on any government entity. The
So
reason
actually,
is
because of the NAB thing coming after you,
because
right?
tomorrow something will go wrong. The NAB will send you a notice that please come. This thing has gone wrong. You are the director of the company. You come and give explanation. Now you have to understand business does not want any such activity in business. And now
Right.
keeping these PEP things, keeping transparency, keeping banking rules, no bank, no entity would like to engage with you if organizations like NAB or FIA or God knows what are investigating you. So there's a lot of damage done by them which they themselves don't know. And at times, I think they use that. They use that to torture you. They use that to threaten you, to even threaten you that we'll put you in money laundering if you don't do a public plea bargain with us. So this kind of activity of NAB needs to be immediately arrested and exposed. And if they don't stop this, I don't think the present government can succeed any economic targets that they have. So I think I have taken up this, but I have got support from everywhere, even the government. Even the people in the government, they feel that the issue that I have raised is something that everybody is talking about in Pakistan. So I think if I get somewhere with this, it will help Pakistan and everybody working in Pakistan.
I think it's an interesting initiative. I mean, how do you hold the Accountability Bureau? How do you hold the Accountability Bureau accountable? I mean, I think that's a very interesting question. You touched on a point. I want to ask you one question. You touched on state-owned enterprises. Do you think that any government anywhere in the world should be in the business of operating business?
Well, there are different views about this, because some areas of your economic and social sector, the government needs to play a role. Like even in United States, there's no airline.
There's no government-owned airline.
But
there's no government-owned steel mill.
But there is government-owned transport system. See,
correct.
So wherever the government needs to play a role, where they see that private sector cannot play a role, government has to play a role.
Even so that would make sense in utilities, right?
And same thing is in Europe, same thing is in Asia, same thing is in China. China though is a communist country, but even in capitalist countries, even in countries which are socialist countries, there is some sectors where government needs to play a role.
So state-owned enterprises need to coexist, but they need to be limited to certain areas. I mean, I think they
need to be limited to certain areas, and if they are not performing, some solution needs to be found for that. It's not necessary that you have to close them down. It's not necessary that you cannot find a public-private situation where those.
So when you think of these solutions, right? Let's say it's a complicated sector, whether it's, let's say, utilities, gas, minerals, something that's complicated. Wouldn't those solutions come from private professionals working in that industry? Coming in as advisors and assisting the government. I mean, recently, I think it was just yesterday, the High Court passed out a judgment that advisors do not have any executive function. If you're not going to get advisors or people who know the sector, how are you going to make progress in that sector? I mean, that's.
So let me explain to you. The High Court might have taken a decision on somebody's plea or somebody's petition. But let me tell you, nobody stops you from keeping advisors. Every minister can engage any advisor that he wants. The advisor not necessarily has to be the Prime Minister's advisor. The advisor can be
at
any minister stage. It can be at any. You can engage any professional. Nobody nobody, the system doesn't stop you from engaging
Okay.
professionals to help you to do what you want to do in your ministry or in your, organization, whatever you are running. So
Right.
that is not that. I mean, I don't think that's a big issue. The issue is you must have the desire to do something. If you
Right.
don't have the desire, any advisor or anybody you bring cannot deliver, because
Correct.
politically you have to make that project or that organization or whatever you are trying to do, you have to give it political support, and you must have that will to make that thing happen.
Interesting. So tell me this. I mean, you look at the American system of governance, and the way they've set it up is that there's a lower house, House of Reps, and then there's the upper house, the Senate. 100 senators. I think there's 400 odd House of Representatives. All they do is make laws. They just legislate. And then the president appoints professionals from industry or whatever of his choice to run as Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of Commerce, as his secretaries who will run the country. Okay, so your legislation happens at the grassroots level, people who are elected, and then the government is run by professionals. Pakistan is not set up like that. Pakistan, you elect the legislative houses, the lower and the upper house, and from there you choose your ministers. That means that you could end up with a minister who's never been, a sector specialist or may not even have the education. They'd be great at legislation, but not at running the function. Should Pakistan adopt the American system? Would it be better for our long-term progress?
Well, let me tell you, American system is not in many countries. Majority of the countries have parliamentary system.
Right.
You look at UK, you look at the whole of Europe. American system is a good system provided you have the adaptability. And then see, you have only spoken about one part of the system, where you bring professionals to be the secretaries of the ministries. But the other side of the system is everything goes through the Senate, everything goes through the Senate committees, everything goes through the Congress, even the appointments of organizations, ambassadors, everything. So there is a check and balance from the parliament side. You might have these people, they are appointed by the Senate, they are answerable to the Senate and the Senate committees, and so is the Congress. The Congress also, they are answerable to the Congress. So what I'm trying to come at is that it might look that the system is more efficient, the American system, but indirectly, Parliament is still in charge. Parliament is still in charge, and Parliament is Parliament is doing micromanagement, whereas in the parliamentary in the US, whereas in the parliamentary system, Parliament is not in charge. The ministers are in charge from the Parliament, and the ministers are answerable to the Parliament. But here in the American system, every secretary, every person of every organization is answerable to the Senate committee and is appointed through the Senate committee. If the Senate committee says no, the guy is not appointed. In the parliamentary system, it doesn't work like that. It is everybody is appointed through the executive authority of the Prime Minister. So it has its goods and bads. Now to adapt to the American system, I am not sure Pakistan is ready for a system like that. There's been a lot of debate.
Why do you say that? Why do you say it's not ready? I mean, we have the people, there's talented individuals.
Because the parliamentary role will be much more extensive than what it is now. The parliament will be involved in day-to-day business, which I am not sure the parliament is ready for.
Is it because they haven't taken on that role? Is it because they don't function with that speed? I mean, what's the reason?
Like you said, the people are put in charge of ministries, and they have no idea what the subject is. If somebody is put in charge of health, he doesn't know anything about the health. If somebody is put in charge of education, now this is something that can be managed. It is not that it can't be managed. It's a matter
by giving advisors.
Managing at the government level, whoever is in power, to put the right people. It's not that you don't have the right people in the party.
Right.
You have all kinds of people in the party, you know. So, but if you bring the presidential system, I don't see the parliament has the capacity
It's a
to
capacity issue.
to do what the US Senate or the US Congress does. And because they don't have the capacity, the government will collapse, in my view, if you put that system. Because they will not come to a consensus to appoint anyone. How will the system continue? The system will have a bad effect, or I should say, an effect where the executive will not be able to function because the parliament will not be able to function, and the
Makes sense.
parliament, what is expected from the parliament, won't be able to deliver. So it's very difficult to make this conclusion to change the system and not really analyzing it that if we change the system, how will it work? So
Interesting.
first we need to really look at it, that look at the American system, look at their capacity of their Senate, of their Congress, and what they actually do in their parliaments and in their committees, and see if this can be done in Pakistan. If it can be done, yes, we can go to the presidential system. What I have seen up till now, it can't be done. We are way far from the capacity of the American Senate and the American Congress.
Do you think the
And
Pakistani Senate functions as efficiently as it can through its committees and through everything?
it is much more efficient than the parliament. Much
Why
more
is that?
efficient.
Why do you feel that?
Because the parties have a choice of bringing the people they need. See, Pakistan Senate, because it's an indirect election, and on this also we have had many times a debate that, like the US Senate, this should be a direct election. But why it was done indirect? The reason it was done indirect is you can bring business people, you can bring lawyers, you can bring doctors, you can bring professionals, you can bring, all kinds of people you can
So
bring.
doesn't that put like a check and balance on the parliament and a support to the government then? I mean, what you're saying then is you've picked the right people in this upper house, and that can help with the governance, right?
No doubt it does. It does not help with the governance, but it has a check on the governance. See, the parliamentary system is an oversight on the government.
So if the
In
parliamentary
the in
system is the
the
oversight on the governance, why do you need a NAB type function?
Well, NAB type function is was created during a dictator's regime. In my view, it should have been done away with long time ago. When you have police, when you have FIA, when you have other authorities like you have in the United States, FBI, and you have local police, and you have intelligence agencies. So there was no need, but this was created for things which actually have no space, in my view, in a democratic government.
They say
So
the
the
FBI was
fault,
also created in a similar manner. I mean, if you look at the history of it and the way it was used back in the early days.
but the fact was that People's Party came in, they couldn't do away with it, or I should say, they didn't do away with it. They didn't give too much importance to it. PMLN came, they also didn't do with it. Together, they didn't do away with it. They talked about it many times. They discussed it many times. They even came up to the stage of legislation many times, but did not really go all the way. And between you and me, every government used this organization, and that is exactly now what PTI is doing, is using this organization.
And so that's why it will always survive.
I am not sure it will survive the way it is surviving now. I think there will be a change because everybody is now realizing that it is now not only helping the government in doing what they want to do, it is
Right.
hurting the country. And in the process, I think the government already brought an ordinance which was to completely take out NAB from bureaucracy and private business. But again, the politicians and the opposition did not agree to that ordinance, so it lapsed. But I feel the desire is on both sides to reach a conclusion.
Any sectors that are hot in Pakistan, let's say the next 5 years, someone looking to come into this country, or even a local wanting to build up a business, any sectors that you think, you know what, focus here, this is going to have good returns?
I think food processing lacking very badly in Pakistan. Mining lacking. I mean, we are still into orthodox type of mining.
Mm-hmm.
Massive potential of mining in Pakistan, which can actually change the history of this country, economic position of this country.
Right.
And obviously, anything to do with labor intensive industry, which is garments. Garments is one area. Look at Bangladesh. They have nothing. No business except garment business. Have crossed 40
Turned around the
billion.
country.
Have crossed 40 billion, and today Bangladesh has $5 billion surplus every year.
Wow.
From their imports to their exports. And this is a country we thought was a liability on Pakistan. So basically, they focused on the potential available, and they focused on that. The government went out of the way to expand, to support, and today Bangladesh is the biggest
Ahead of
supplier,
Pakistan.
one of the biggest supplier to the
It's ahead of Pakistan.
way ahead of Pakistan. I don't know how many years it will take us to reach the capacity and the exports of, and there's only one export, let me tell you. There are not many items like Pakistan has many items to export. Bangladesh, it's only garments. The 40 billion export is 98% is garments.
Wow.
So you can imagine what kind of huge export is going out of Bangladesh.
True.
So I think this Pakistan has many sectors. Engineering sector is a very big sector. Downstream engineering industry is a very big
talent
sector.
there as well.
So there is a possibility. Automobile is increasing in Pakistan. Manufacturing is increasing in Pakistan. So the downstream industry can really develop in Pakistan. So there are possibilities,
And these are interesting sectors. I mean, you've named food is obviously the big one. Mining.
We are an agriculture country. I have yet to see hardly few companies processing food, actual food. I mean, you see vegetables being processed, which is our masalas and things like that. But
Cargill-like company doesn't exist
here. You go to
here.
Asian countries, every kind of food is processed.
Right.
And that is why the tomato costs from 20 rupees to 200 rupees, because there is no processing. So until there is processing of food, and we waste, I was given a figure by Asian Development Bank, we waste something like 35% of fruit and vegetables. They are wasted because it can't reach the stores, it can't reach the plants to be processed, it can't reach the places. So there are many factors which is affecting our agriculture industry.
So there's a lot of opportunity. One thing I wanted to ask you, we're almost out of time, but I wanted to leave this question for the end. Every time I met you, you've always had this very positive sort of outlook. You've always looked happy. I haven't seen you upset ever. And I always wondered, how do you stay so positive and motivated? You've had your set of very deep personal tragedies, and you've really been through some difficult times on your family front. Yet you've managed to achieve so much, and you've always stayed positive throughout. I mean, how do you do it? What's in your mind? How do you make that?
It's. Tragedies do happen, and some tragedies you don't expect happen in your lifetime. Parents going. You face that. Everybody loses their parents, but losing a grown-up child is a tragedy. You live with it every day. And that is something that I have a problem living with. But I guess we are all made like that. We get over the worst tragedies that you can have in your life. But I guess life goes on, and when you get over it, you actually don't get over it, but you don't have a choice what to do, because you have other children, and if you don't continue, it affects your other children, it affects your family, your brothers, your everyone. So it's something that you learn to live with. I guess
So you
that's the
take the
only thing.
responsibility to just power through it.
Yeah, and I guess Allah has made us like that to live through such tragedies. Tragedies. Otherwise, so I think a person would collapse.
That's true.
Yeah, it would be very difficult to live with this if he had not given us this courage and this ability to live with these tragedies.
That's true. And hopefully, we all have the strength and courage to live through all the challenges that we face. But I do see a lot of opportunity, as you mentioned, the sectors you mentioned. I think that it will be an interesting 5 years for Pakistan. I get this question a lot from folks: is should we stick it out here or should we move? And so that's my last question to you: should people stick it out in Pakistan for the next 5 years,
I think
or
they should
should
stick
they
it
exit?
out here. I think they should stick it out here, and they should try to reach people who can. Like, I get a lot of small business people, people just starting up, people wanting help. I think there are a lot of people in Pakistan who would support in every way that is possible. So I think they should stick it out and reach out to people who can help them, who can solve their problems, who can support them, and whatever is possible can be done. So I think it's better, and keeping in view what's happening in the world, Fazan. You see Middle East people coming back. You see United States people coming back. We had a mad guy like Trump as the president, trying to tell Muslims get out. So
Right.
anything can happen
That's true.
anywhere. So why
It's
stay
better to
away
be in
from
your
it?
home country.
Exactly. You might not be happy on many counts, but at least nobody is going to tell you get out of Pakistan.
Yeah,
So
this is your home.
that's why I feel you have the security in the end, and you should try to manage things in Pakistan as much as you can. I mean, obviously, if you cannot, and there is an opportunity which you need to go,
Right.
I think you should. But if you are going for the sake of just migrating from Pakistan, I think I don't suggest that.
Good last words of advice. I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for taking out the time for this. I know you've got a hectic schedule. And thank you everyone for tuning in. This is episode 22. We have 2 more episodes left and we'll be done with our season 1 of DigiTales. Once again, Salim Saab, thank you so much for tuning
Thank you,
in.
Fazan. Thank you for having me.
All right,
Good
take
luck.
care.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.